And I'm going to call Pastor Nicole up. Can you guys just totally, abundantly, amazingly bless her? Because we're so honored to have her.
I can't tell if I'm a nervous nanny or nervous Minnie, or it's just the presence of God is so thick. I mean, I was completely fine, and then I walked in the double doors at the beginning of service, and I was I can't stop. It's my heart's So anyways, I just say it's Jesus. Yeah. So either way, he'll take away the nervousness, or he'll do whatever. Okay, so I have a zillion crazy thoughts in my mind, and plus, oh cool. And plus, sometimes Aaron tries to tell me what I should say and talk about. So he gave me a target topic, and he'll kind of follow up with it the rest of the month as we go into Easter and things. But also, I just felt like there's just some other things that God wanted me to say. And so I'm going to try and weave it all together. I know it will be fine, and so just bear with me if it seems like I'm choppy, but there's just a lot of good stuff. And so first I just wanted to say that I heard so many amazing things about last week. Matt did such a great job talking about just, recognizing your part in the body and just connecting and staying connected and honor and coming under each other and things like that. So that's awesome. We had a really great discussion on Wednesday about it. So if you missed it, get it on, watch it on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. But it's good because it goes right into kind of what we're going after this month. And if you are familiar with us or if you've been here for a while, you know that family is our thing. Okay, and so we don't just say it. And actually, I don't know, maybe several months ago, I taught on family, and so it's funny that I'm coming back to it, but just from a different angle. And so, family, to what maybe the world would call family, is not what really family is. And so, family in the world is just broken, disconnected, dishonest, non-covenant, things like that. So, but what real family looks like is love and honesty and covenant, commitment and follow through and on and on and on. And so I've talked about that in the past, but today I just felt like as we enter into the season of Easter and things like that, covenant, a family covenant is so important. And if you think about it, the things that Jesus did and the whole reason he went to the cross and all of that is because of his covenant. It was a covenant he had with the Father, and it's his covenant that he created for us to have with the Father. And so it's all about covenant. And so we're going to really talk about that, but also too, I was okay, I've been really big on the river this year, since January 1. And so I just thought, I want to talk about the river. And so I just started talking to God about it. And I'm I just have all these things for both. And so we're just going to, I just felt like God was saying, it's all tied together. Because the river is a commitment. When you step into the river, when you are going to the ocean or whatever, or a lake or whatever, and you're stepping into it, you're committing to getting wet. And so here's the thing: how many of you, especially moms, your kids love to swim, and you're dang it, I just don't want to hit the pool right now. I don't want to get wet. I don't want to get. And when you get out, you're cold. You hate that feeling of being cold. And then you get your hair wet and wash your hair and all this stuff. And so when you're doing it, you're committing to it, because you're not going to just get in and kind of stand around. You're going to get splashed and you're going to end up getting dumped. And regardless, you're going to spaz out because you got your hair wet, and that's so stupid because you just want to have fun with them. I don't know. So anyways, I feel the river is symbolic of commitment and covenant. And so it all goes together. So we're going to make it happen. But another thing is, if you were here and heard the Valentine's Day thing that Aaron and I did when we sat up here, we kind of shared a lot about our past and our story and just some things within our marriage specifically that had happened, and it was just really super rough, and a lot of things that had happened that I stuck around for, that a lot of people wouldn't stick around for. And it gets me to thinking, and I even said that day, I don't know why. I don't know why I stayed, and I'm not condoning the fact that I stayed. I'm not saying that you should stay if you're in a bad relationship, like, physical relationship. But I don't know. And we were talking about it in our life group and the week after, and I was saying these same things, I just don't know. And so Josh and Angie, they're like my personal counselors, and me and Aaron both were like, gosh, Josh and Angie, they just like counsel us. And Josh just looked at me when I was saying it, and he's like, well, I know why you stayed. It was because of covenant. And man, did that just hit me in the spirit, because it's like, wow, that's really what it was, because I believe in it. I believe in covenant. I believe in when I say yes to something, and this is my personality, like when I say yes to something, I do it. And I don't just do it halfway, I do it all the way. It's just, I don't know. I think Jesus just put it in me. I follow through and I'm committed. And so that just spoke to me. And I thought, God is just bringing all of this together for me. And so I just want to talk a little bit about covenant and the river. And so we're going to start in Ezekiel 47. So we're going to go to Ezekiel 47. Verses, I'm going to start in 1. I might skip around a little bit. We're going to do 1 through 12. But it's a little bit long, so. Okay, so the man brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water coming out from under the threshold of the temple toward the east. The water was coming down from under the south side of the temple, south of the altar. He then brought me out through the north gate and led me around the outside to the outer gate facing east, and the water was flowing from the south. As the man went eastward with a measuring line in his hand, he measured off 1,000 cubits, and then led me through water that was ankle deep. He measured off another 1,000 cubits and led me through the water that was knee deep. He measured off another 1,000 and led me through water that was up to the waist. He measured off another 1,000, but now it was a river that I could not cross, because the water had risen and was deep enough to swim in. A river that no one could cross. He asked me, Son of man, do you see this? Then he led me back to the bank of the river. On verse 7 now. When I arrived there, I saw a great number of trees on each side of the river. He said to me, the water flows toward the eastern region and goes down into Arabah, where it enters the sea. When it empties into the sea, the water there becomes fresh. Verse 9. Swarms of living creatures will live wherever the river flows. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Swarms of living creatures will live wherever the river flows. There will be large numbers of fish, because this water flows there and makes the salt water fresh. So where the river flows, everything will live. Fishermen will stand along the shore, spreading their nets. The fish will be of many kinds, like the fish of the great sea. Swamps and marshes will not become fresh. They will be left for salt. Fruit trees of all kinds, verse 12. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow on both banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. Every month they will bear, because the water from the sanctuary flows to them. Their fruit will serve for food, and their leaves for healing. Then go to Revelation 22. I'm just going to read verses 1 and 2. And actually in the NLT and for this version. But this is John's vision in Revelation. And it says, Then the angel showed me a river with the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. It flowed down the center of the main street, and on each side of the river grew a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit with a fresh crop each month. The leaves were used for medicine to heal the nations. So I think that first we need to know that wherever the river flows, there's life. There's life, there is growth, things thrive in the river and when the river is flowing. And so I feel like, for this year, as God is just showing several of us at the river and the water, our intercessor team, we're awesome. And we're crazy. And we get up there and people are like, I saw this, and I saw this, and this, and it's so cool. And it's a lot of the times it has to do with just the things that are flowing in this place. But it's not to be kept here. But it's flowing through us, in us, around us, all over this place. And I feel like the thing of it is we can talk all the time about the river is here, and the river is rising, and it's over my head, and all this stuff. But the key is that we have to make the choice to say yes and to jump in. We have to. We can walk. I can go to Florida, I can walk the beach the whole time. And I could be right to where the water comes, right here, but never touch the water. And it's my choice whether or not I step 1 foot in and then start to walk in it, And so back in Ezekiel, it's like, I feel like he's describing like this person's willingness to commit, willingness to say yes to a covenant, willingness to enter and say, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And as you, in the verses in Ezekiel, it's like first it's like it's ankle deep, and then it's knee deep, and then it's waist deep, and then it's over our head. And so as we think about the things that flow in the river, and in us, we are desiring the things that come with the river, it's all dependent upon our willingness to commit and to be in covenant. And so I want to talk about, like, what does that look like? Because it's easy to come in and be like, yeah, I'm here, I'm committed, I'm here, you know? But there's a difference between saying that and then allowing yourself to be open and vulnerable to what that really means to be fully committed. Okay, so let's talk about this a minute. So when we come into covenant and we step in and we commit to things, we literally come under the influence of it. Okay? So like as I'm talking about this, picture like coming under the influence of the river of God. But also I want to talk about it like on the natural level, like whether that be in your relationships, your actual natural family, or also like we're really going to be talking a lot about like the upper room family and what that looks like to commit here and to be in covenant here and to come under the influence of it. So we hear testimonies all the time of people who, because they've said yes and committed and come into a covenant here, things begin to shift and change in their lives. And so Kathy was just telling me during worship, her little grandson Callan, I don't know if you guys saw it on the Facebook page, but he had like a fever of 106 yesterday. And so they found out it was strep and all these things, but Kathy was talking to her daughter on the phone about it, and she said, you know what, by tomorrow at noon that fever is going to be completely gone. And so she came up during worship and she had just had a conversation with her daughter and his fever is completely gone. No medicine, not taking Tylenol or anything to that, but that is what happens when you commit, you say yes, and you come under the influence of that covenant and that commitment. Okay, so when you're under that influence, it's like God is making all of those things available to you, right? So if Aaron and I are receiving blessing in an area, as you come in and under and commit to covenant under this place, under us, feels weird, but those things that God has put on us and favored us with, you get to come in under the influence of it. You get to receive that as well. And so it's so awesome how God does that. Think about it. The river, he didn't just say that's for the pastors and the leaders and, you know, the business owners. When we step into the river, that's for you and your kids and your unsaved brother and your parents and whatever that looks like. You come in under the influence of the river, which is him and his presence. Everything that's up in heaven is now available to you. And so it's on us then just to say yes, to commit, to jump in, to become open, to become vulnerable. So some things, covenant with Jesus. Okay, so Jesus, if you think about it, when he was, taking the cross, when he was doing the Bible story with Evie this week in our little preschool time. And there's a picture of Jesus, and you guys have seen it. It's the portrayal of when he has just been beaten and he's got, his whole entire back is bloody and there's all those wounds and all that. And I think that when Jesus said yes to that, when he committed to that he did for us, he became vulnerable. He became open, transparent. All of those things, that's what it requires. That's what covenant requires. And if he would have said, I don't really want to be remembered in the future as the one who was unrecognizable, that's not complete vulnerability, right? And so he was willing to be vulnerable. Humble. When you come under a covenant, it's like you're humble. You're humble to that. Like an example would be marriage. So when you enter into a marriage covenant, as women, we come in and under the influence of our husbands. We get humble. We open up and be vulnerable. Like, I really could just teach on that, being a vulnerable woman with your husband for a long time, but that's a whole other thing. Vulnerability, openness, transparency, all of that. And even to Jesus. Like, I was just thinking, as I was studying this, I'm thinking, we can say yes to Jesus, and that's awesome. Like, yes. But then we could just stop there. And we can say yes to him, and we could just stop. Or we can commit to following out what that covenant looks like, and we can really start to figure out and address some of the stuff that we have going on here. And really expose our hearts and expose ourselves to him, and allow ourselves to be layered off and, just open and transparent with him. And he already sees all that. So sometimes I'm so frustrated with myself. I'm thinking, he already knows all this stinking stuff that I'm dealing with, so why won't I, or what is the fear that I won't open up and just allow it to be exposed and dealt with? Hallelujah. Get free, And so that's a process, but you have to be willing to say, it's not just my yes to Jesus, it's my yes and then my walking it out. Amen. Walking it out, and you can just parallel that so much with other covenant relationships in your life. Spouses, so important. We can say yes on our wedding day, but then what happens as the days and the weeks and the months and the years goes on, we have to become vulnerable and open and transparent. That's how the covenant grows. That's how it sustains. That's how it thrives. That's how it reproduces. That's how it multiplies down the generations. And so Jesus is such a great example of what covenant looks like. Okay? When you enter into covenant, when you step into the river, I like at the end of that in Ezekiel, he says, it's over our head, it's hard to get across. And I just picture it's like a covering. Okay? So when we step in, when we enter into commitment, when we say yes, when we are willing to go beyond our ankles, our knees, our waist, and we're willing to get it over our head, oh dude, when we're like that, sometimes we're flailing. That's completely vulnerable. It's going off the high dive, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm willing to be vulnerable to the fact that I could drown and a lifeguard might have to save me. I'm willing, And so that's how it is when we get to the river with Jesus. There's a covering. We get covered. And I love that because it's weird. We can walk around and we're not even in tune to the fact that we're not covered when we're not in commitment and covenant. And yet it's so fulfilling and so safe when we know that we said yes, we stepped in, we're entered into the covenant, and we're covered. And I remember when we were going through marriage, our premarital counseling before we got married, and I don't know if this is good advice or not, but the counselor said, so your husband's the head of the house, or head of the marriage, and she's like, so when he makes a decision, and you don't agree with it, just let him. Because if he makes a wrong decision, that's on him. And I was like, that's awesome. Fine, I'm willing to do it. It's not my fault. It's going to be his. And yes, maybe that was kind of a bad attitude. But isn't there something freeing about it? So we know that when we can come in and under the covering of God, and we're just saying yes. I'm listening, I'm being obedient, but I trust you, and I know that you have my best interest. And if this gets screwed up, you got it. It's okay. All right, so, all right, go to John 5, and kind of what this verse is talking about is doing what the Father's doing. And so, I'm trying to tie in covenant with Jesus and covenant with the church and covenant with family and things like that, but when you come into covenant, you start to look like y'all start to look the same, kind of. Does that make sense? We all look different, and we all need to look different. But what I'm saying is if you come in here, and if today's your first week or your second week or something, the more that you're here, you're going to start to notice that we all are going after the same thing. We all have the same verbiage. I don't know, you can come to a Sunday morning and you're going to hear the same words coming out as you do on a Wednesday night life group or a Friday night women's thing, because we're in this together, we're covenant, and we're committed, and we're all going after the same thing, and so we all kind of take on that same whatever of each other. Does that make sense? So if you look at families that have good covenant, good commitment, do you see a lot of the things that they do are the same? They maybe have the same beliefs, or you celebrate your holidays the same. Growing up, one of Aaron's biggest pet peeves. All of our birthdays, We had my dad's side for a birthday party. We had my mom's side for a birthday party. And it was just, we never had one big birthday party when we were growing up. And I just don't want to stop doing that. I like that. I think it's fun. I like spending time with each family separate. And so we're doing that now. And it's like, you know, like when you see how, what I'm saying, like the covenant and commitment, you kind of start to take on that look. So, in John 5, it says, and this is verse 19 and 20, it says, "So Jesus explained, I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. He does only what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows him everything he is doing. In fact, the Father will show him how to do even greater works than healing this man, then you will truly be astonished." And so as we say yes and we commit, you know, picture the river. As we jump into the river, we are just, our eyes are focused on him and we're doing what he's doing. We're seeing what he's seeing. We're saying what he's saying. We're praying what he's praying. There's that song where we go, I go, God, you know. And I was kind of like, I don't know, like, but no, I mean, I get it. Like, where he goes, I go. Where what he says, I say. Because I'm in, I'm committed, I'm saying yes. And so I come under the covering, and now I start to look like him, I start to talk like him, I start to go after the same things he's going after. So when we say yes to being committed here, we start to talk the same, like hopefully you're okay with it, because if you're here, it means you like us. And so then we all start to go after the same thing, we all start to do, we're all start on like one thing, like one pack. And which is cool, because the river is all running in the same direction. Oh, I just thought this is so good. So that's how that works. Okay, so, and as we start to look like the Father, as we start to, you know, to become him, it's like that's how we're showing the world who he is. Because when they look at us and they see that we're committed and we're covenant and we're not willing to stab each other in the back and we're not willing to allow gossip to go on, we're not willing to allow someone else to say something negative about someone else in this covenant, that is showing the world really who God is. Because there's really hardly anywhere else that you could go and really get a good representation of the Father. Because you know, in your workplaces, there's complaining, there's negativity, there's stabbing in the back, there's, you know, there's all of that junk. And so it's us who gets to step into the river, come under covenant, commit, say yes, and then we show the world who our good Father is, because that's love. It's so unnatural. It's like weird, you know? Okay. Also, I talked about vulnerability and openness with God and each other. And I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago with somebody, and we were just talking about just different things and different situations and stuff. And as I was talking, I was getting this revelation that here, this covenant thing has already been so laid down, and so like it's already showing. And as people, members of this place or non-members or whatever, who have been here with us for a while or even not that long, it doesn't matter. But as problems arise or an issue with someone comes up, in a normal time in their life where they would just be like, see ya, I'm hitting the door, I'm not dealing with that, I need to go. There's something that's been cultivated, there's something in the atmosphere here where people are actually digging in and being willing to say, you know what, it's a problem, I want to figure it out, I want to fix it, and I want to stay. Because I'm committed, and I'm committed to this place, and I'm in covenant. And that is so amazing. I feel like that's taking church to the next level. Because it's real easy to get connected into a church, and it's real easy to say goodbye. And so here, there's just that atmosphere and that culture for that. And I'm excited because I feel like non-covenant and non-commitment is the tactic of the devil. If he can keep us separated and holding back and not willing to say yes and not willing to jump in and not willing to go in over our head, then there's always room for us to say, see ya, and hit the door because we're not fully committed and invested. Okay, Matthew 14, verses 15 through 17, and then I'm reading 19 and 20. And this is the story of the boy with the fish and the bread. That evening, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves. But Jesus said, that isn't necessary. You feed them. But we have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. Then he told the people to sit down on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed them. Then, breaking the loaves into pieces, he gave the bread to the disciples, who distributed it to the people. They all ate as much as they wanted, and afterwards the disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftovers. Okay, so that's a story from our childhood for many of us. But I'm going to give props to Jim Baker and Zion, and I was listening to one of his stewardship messages, and he was talking about this story, and it connected with me that when we bring our natural things into the river, which is the super of God, it makes things supernatural. I was like, wow, that's so good. So the boy brought his natural baskets of bread and put it into the river of God, and God, committed with heaven. Jesus, looked up to heaven, and it became supernatural. It fed 5,000 people. I love that. That is so good. When we take our natural, our whatever it is, our brokenness, our financial problems, our relational problems, our workplace problems, whatever, our natural stuff, and we put it in the river, and if His supernatural, His power, His presence, it becomes supernatural. And what we think we see can happen with the natural, we put it in the presence, and it becomes supernatural, and He does so much more with it. So good. So we have choices. We can stay on the natural side of things. We can stay ankle deep. We could even just kind of like watch it all go on. We could all like even come in and be like, yeah, this feels good. And just kind of keep going, or we could just really like dive in, and we could just really see what happens, because God will take it and it will just blow our minds. Like in Ephesians 3:20, where He says He'll do abundantly, exceedingly more than we could ask, think, or imagine. And that's what happens when we put things in the river. When we say yes, when we commit. Even the word I'm thinking of is when we sow in. We can sow in with our finances so many ways. I don't think sometimes we think about when we pay for things that we're actually sowing into something. No matter what, whether it's gas, whatever. And so when we give our finances and we sow in and we say yes with our finances into the river, like watch it blow up, right? And so we could do good. We could do really good on the natural side of like our finances and feel like we're doing well and we're giving and things like that. But then what happens when we really step in and we say, okay, and we watch it blow up? It's just awesome. And it doesn't just have to be finances. It could be relationships. I think I can think of relationships in my life where it's like, okay, I can cultivate that relationship here, and I can pray about it, and I can show them God and things like that. But what does it look like when I just literally throw that whole situation into the river, and I give it to Him, and He's taking it, and He's just blowing it up with His super, with His presence, with His power. And so we get to partner together with Him and take something natural and see it just become so supernatural. Also, health. What does it look like when we don't just tolerate our health problems? We don't just like make it. We don't just live with our back pain. We actually say, okay, I'm willing to like put that in the river. I'm willing to step in and commit to giving that to Him and saying yes to you, Jesus. And then what does that look like when it gets blown up and it's gone? Like, it's awesome. It's so awesome. Sometimes it's scary. Because that's what vulnerability and openness and all that is about. And it's not about that. I'm sorry. It sometimes can open us up to where it's scary because we're vulnerable. But man, watch what He does when we do it. Okay, 2 Corinthians 9. I'm just going to roll through just a couple more verses and then we're going to finish up. But God will generously provide all that you need. Yes. You will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. And just in my thoughts, I'm thinking, like for me, just right now, like the financial part of that. When we worry about money, this is just resonating in me just because I've been listening to a lot of stewardship and financial podcasts and things, but just resonates in me that when we worry about money, it's almost as if we're worshiping money. Because we're allowing the worry of it to kind of dictate the choices that we make, how we sow, what we sow into, things like that. But in 2 Corinthians it says He will generously provide all that we need. And so, yes, there could be times when finances we do need to be aware of it. We need to be mindful of it. We need to be wise. We need to steward well. But I'm just saying we can't allow it to dictate our choices that we make. And that goes with anything, relationships, health, jobs, all of that. Because Matthew 6:26, look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. And aren't you far more valuable to him than they are? And so, we just know that as we open ourselves up and we commit to saying yes, I know it's sometimes hard to say yes to enter into covenant because we've been hurt, because people have let us down when we thought we were in a other covenant type situation. But as we say yes to all of these things, we get to come in and just celebrate and enjoy the things that God's going to do and watch it unfold in front of our eyes for everyone around us. And I just felt like God gave me this week, and it was, I don't need to know, this is good for me because I'm a planner. And on the natural side of my brain, I'm saying, yes, I do need to know. But on the spiritual side of my brain, I'm saying, I don't need to know what the future holds. I don't need to know what everything looks like. I don't need to. But I just need to know the one who holds my future. Yeah? And how do we know the one who holds our future? We say yes, and then we go knee deep, waist deep, over our head. We commit, we walk out a covenant, we get vulnerable, we get open, and all of those types of things. And so, the other thing I heard while we were doing worship was that Jesus today, felt like Jesus today has come to undo the things that the enemy has done. He has come to undo the things that the enemy has done. And so, what I want us to do is, we're going to create a river. It's going to be awesome. And this is your chance. This is your chance to just say yes. And I don't want to stop there. We're not just saying yes to Jesus. We're saying, yes, I'm all in. And I'm in this thing. I'm committed. I have covenant. And Jesus ultimately, the whole thing with Jesus is yes. He's the main thing. But I just felt like this was also an opportunity as you jump into this river, as you dive in, that you're saying yes to this place. If you're saying yes to being committed here. Our goal is not to get bigger and gain numbers. That's not the reason why I want you to commit to this. Our goal is to commit to covenant, to doing this thing so that we can show the world who he is and what love looks like. And we can run together. And we can create a culture where people can come in and be healed and delivered and set free and empowered and just go through the moon and go through the roof with the things that God has for their life. Where the purpose comes forth and destiny comes forth and they're open and vulnerable, transparent, and family members are getting healed. And I'm just declaring all of that. That's what happens when you come together and you work in unity. The river is going in one direction, and when it's all going in one direction, man, it is powerful. It is powerful, and it cannot be stopped. And so, we're just going to create a river up here today. And so, this is your chance to just commit, to say yes. And I don't want it just to be like a commitment and a covenant thing to Jesus or to the church, but I feel like we're saying yes. I'm giving and I'm committing this relationship. Whether it's with a spouse, we're diving in this river. I feel like there's going to be healings that take place as we cultivate this and jump in the river. So the band to come, and there's going to be healings in the river, and there's going to be freedom in the river, and there's going to be revelation in the river, and Jesus.
Yes.
And family, commitment, whatever you need, financial, this is going to happen. I feel like it's kind of blank right now, but stand up. We're going to stand up. The band's going to start playing. And I also felt like today was going to be a day of people getting saved. People have never been saved before, never experienced that salvation. So, Josh and Angie are going to come up here. If you just need to, if you don't know, is Jesus my yes? Have I said yes to him? They're going to walk through that with you. And so, they'll be over there. But then also, can I have, our intercessor team, because we're talking about this on Friday, can you guys kind of come up to the front? We're going to kind of start to stir up this river. And I would like, as the music's playing, that we're gonna just like maybe do like a, oh Jesus, let's do that. A fire tunnel. How many are familiar with a fire tunnel? It's so fun! We haven't done one in a long time, so but we're gonna just come up, and this is your chance. We're just gonna step in the river. I feel like God is just gonna unlock some things, okay? So, Jesus is good. He is so good, and this is your chance. Not to say that if you say no today, you can't say yes later, but why not just do it today? Because it would just be that much easier. And everybody else is doing it, so why don't you? Okay, so we're just gonna play. Yes, play. And maybe, let's see. Who else? Just some of our ministry team leaders or our pastors and stuff. Can we come up? We're just gonna we're gonna dance a little bit, and then we're gonna just get the fire tunnel going. And yeah. Jesus. Okay, so let's pray. So God, thank you so much for what you've just done in here today. But God, we say yes to you, and we just declare that what's getting ready to happen is the floodgates are going to be opened up, Lord. And I just ask, God, that you would just push on the hearts of people, Lord, that we would just say yes, that we would commit, that we would begin to just dive in, that we would not just stay ankle deep, Lord, but that we would go to the knees and to the waist and even be saying yes to over our head. And God, even though we don't know what that looks like, God, we are not scared, we are not afraid, we are anticipating and eagerly expecting what this indicates, what we are prophesying, this act that we are doing, God, what it means in this place, what it means for the city, God, what it means for this nation, for this region, for this state, God. We thank you, Lord, that we welcome you. We say yes to your presence, to the river of life that's just flowing from your throne, straight from heaven, straight down into this place, down the aisles, all around the rows, through the seats, into the hearts of people, God. That we can be changed, transformed, delivered, set free, healed,